All right, thanks everyone for coming. My name is Nate Meinzer. This is Jake Hannon, and our talk today is on building massive multiplayer online data products, which, by way of saying, in a gaming theme, collaborative data products that bring business teams and data teams together. Like I said, I'm Nate. I'm Director Partner Engineering at Sigma. My favorite RPG is Skyrim. And
Internally at Sigma, my favorite RPG is World of Warcraft. I haven't played in quite some time, but.
All right, so just a little pre-game tutorial before we dive in. What is Sigma? Sigma is the exploratory layer of the modern data stack, and it provides a business intelligence interface that users already know because it is based around a spreadsheet, all in the cloud, directly built into your data warehouse. So with that said, let's get the game on and hand it over to Jake.
Why are we here? This entire theme about multiplayer and quests, if we think about the state of the union as it relates to data teams and business teams, you can probably find several thousand of these examples, but Archie on Twitter kind of really nicely articulates it. There's this back and forth where somebody has a bunch of data and the business has everything living in Excel. They're like, hey, this takes 100 hours to build. Can you help automate? And the data team's like, oh, great, here comes another process. It's going to take forever. And in many ways, it's really kind of a hostile environment working back and forth. And so the way that we think about that way of working is kind of similar to the dial-up age. So if you look at this architecture, we see a lot of really good things, especially as it relates to dbt and Snowflake. We have this wonderful governed data platform. We have a bunch of third-party data sources landing into Snowflake or Databricks. We're modeling it and testing it with dbt. But then this thing happens, and it has always happened, on the bottom there in the purple, where this ungoverned manual work. So whether you're in another BI tool where you're just writing queries directly in Snowflake, exporting it to Excel, sending off a CSV in an email, version 5, final, whatever it might be. An analyst works with that offline, again, in Excel, doing whatever it is they want. And then the point at which they're ready to actually action on that data and send it back to some third-party source to get another manual import. Candidly, as I say it, and I've said it so often, it's a real pain. And so as we think about that, just kind of talking about this never-ending quest of data and working together, it's one of my favorite memes, and really, again, the way that I think teams work together today. Everyone's just, hey, it's your fault. Hey, I don't have this. And again, I kind of mentioned this. It feels as though, for many reasons or many ways, we've been kind of min-maxing our data teams. So we have Snowflake, we have dbt, we have Metaplane, all these really cool tools in the stack that help us be more successful. But for whatever reason, we've decided to kind of leave our business teams in the dust. And arguably, they're far more important than the work that we do. So as we think about that, there is a better way. At least we think so at Sigma, and how we deploy Sigma in our data stack internally. So it looks very similar to the dial-up age, but we've modernized it quite a bit. So again, in a similar fashion, we have all of our third-party data sources being loaded into Snowflake via Fivetran. Again, we're modeling and testing all that data with dbt and materializing that in Snowflake. And then this next part is where everything kind of drastically changes, both for the data team and the business team. We'll talk about this in one of these quests that we'll get into. But the idea of exploring data in a spreadsheet-like UI within Sigma, and then our new functionality called input tables, we're allowing the business to work together directly in Sigma, write information directly back to Snowflake, so no more Google Sheets or Excel or anything like that, and then create really actionable insights. And of course, we have Metaplane observing all of that. Again, nothing leaves Snowflake. We're doing it all in the cloud. All right, so let's talk about our first quest. What is spectator mode, and why should there be no spectator mode? I think in today's world, I'm sure you can all appreciate the notion of seeds, dbt seeds. Now, I've been using dbt for 5 years, no shade, love dbt. But in today's working environment, working with seeds, you talk to the business, hey, we need to update this field. Okay, we'll get to it in a week. All right, here's the PR, can you review it? All these different things happen. And ultimately, the people who know best are the actual business users, the ones who understand the business requirements and what they want to do with that data. So, in a word, they know it better than you do. So what we're going to walk through, I wanted to do this live, but we have a video, and we're going to show you how that workflow looks, what that workflow looks like in Sigma. So this is a Sigma workbook. Nate and myself are account owners, excuse me, and we have a bunch of it looks like we have some null data around a number of companies. And so I just want to look at that null data, maybe drill down by account owner, and hopefully we have good Wi-Fi so this video can run. Should have just done it live. Okay, so we have our accounts by score split out for Jake and Nate. And what Nate wants to do is he wants to actually better understand this data, and perhaps he's reached out to these individual accounts. He knows them better than we do. And he wants to apply his own context to actually override what those scores might be. And so that will happen in a second. This is Nate using input tables, which again is a Sigma element that allows users to write back directly to Snowflake or Databricks. And so because he knows these accounts, he's going to set a bunch of scores and he wants to actually override those values and no longer have them be null. So he's now saved that input table. And again, we will be writing that back to Snowflake. And what we want to do as part of our larger DBT project and ecosystem, we actually want to fire off a job that will rerun all of our transformations and take in the new inputs provided by Nate to update the account score. And so as soon as we can stop buffering, we're going to see that action in action. So Nate's going to kick off this run DBT cloud job button. And we saw that we got a check mark. So if we jump back over to DBT, we can see that we have a job called in the extract. It's been triggered by this Sigma button. And so we're running our transformation pipelines directly from hitting a button in Sigma. So you don't have to leave, do anything like that. So again, just to highlight what you saw there, in keeping with a similar fashion that we've all been accustomed to of having data in Snowflake, the ability to use Sigma in a workbook, have an input table, and then writing that back to Snowflake, we can then reincorporate it into our DBT project, apply any of that modeling or transformations that you want, and of course, all the tests that you're accustomed to, and then reproduce that data asset for your consumers. And it looks like the job completed. So if we jump back and we refresh our data, awesome, looks like all the nulls have disappeared, so clear out that null filter. Awesome, there's our scores. And let's filter it by account score. Awesome, great work, Nate.
Thanks, Jake.
You did great. So that's just one example, but we'll get next. There we go. Okay, so that was quest number one. Quest number two, if you were a gamer at heart, and you played World of Warcraft or anything like that, I'm sure you're familiar with daily quests. I remember as a kid, it took me, I don't know, 5 hours of my day doing dailies, and then I realized I had to get up and go do things. But you know, daily quests for the business is very much a real thing. Consider somebody who has some process where they, again, go to a BI dashboard, they export it to Excel, they do some process, and then they take action on. And so what we want to do is just highlight a situation with Sigma where that is a thing of the past. So this is just a screenshot, but what Nate is trying to understand, he has a bunch of high value accounts, and in our data, he's understanding if people have unsubscribed or clicked. And so you can imagine in any workbook, you would have 500,000 rows of data, but Nate really only cares about things that matter to him, so accounts that are in his name. So what he can do in Sigma, what we call a scheduled export. So when Nate is configured, he says, I only care about data that relates to me, where I'm the account owner. And every day he wants to send a quick PDF into Slack based on whether or not someone is unsubscribed. If they have, maybe he wants to go take some action, reach out, like why is this interaction not going well? And so again, highlighting this effort of keeping everything directly in Snowflake and Sigma, Nate gets a nice Slack notification that says, hey, you have some new engagements. You can go back to the workbook and take action directly.
All right, thanks, Jake. So after I'm brought into the workbook because of the alert, and by the way, I love this. Jake's the data platform manager at Sigma. He does this all the time, just sends you the workbook with just your updates. The important thing then, though, is that you can take action, right? Those insights that are in your dashboard are only useful to the extent that you can take action upon them, right? And the operational systems that run your business are not necessarily connected to the dashboard. So keeping this with this example of the contacts, my high value contacts that have unsubscribed, maybe I want to reach out and re-engage them. And we use HubSpot to manage our marketing campaigns, right? So this quest is about ending the export. The typical path is somebody would download a CSV or download into Google Sheets or Excel, right, to get that list of contacts and then send it back over to Jake, put a ticket in his backlog and say, oh, I need these updated. uploaded and use an import-export wizard or maybe FTP in the old days or whatever weird brittle script people have hacked things together. But it's a lot of time on Jake's calendar to do that. It's not fun. And more importantly, it's not governed. It's not scalable. It's not secure. So this quest is about killing those exports. When data leaves your platform, you failed, right? So if you can create a stack that helps people keep the data within their platform and do everything they need to do for their job, then you have succeeded. So this is how we do it at Sigma. There's other ways of doing it, but we use a tool called Hightouch, which is reverse ETL. And what that tool does is it fetches a query structure from the Sigma API and executes it against your cloud data warehouse. It gets the output return of that query structure, and it will load it directly in the operational system. So that could be Salesforce, HubSpot. They have 200 different connectors. Crossbeam, we use that one as well. You can update fields in those operational systems based on logic that you're applying in the workbook. And the business user is in the loop in this process rather than just throwing things over the fence to Jake. So I've got a video here. Hopefully it will play where we can see this in action. Please don't buffer too long for me. Okay, so these are my contacts. I can see I want to sync these to HubSpot. I'm going to create a nice little email. And I can filter on those contacts and identify the folks that I want to target in my campaign. I can get some information here. It looks like Alejandra is a biostatistician. I don't really care about biostats. I'm into data. I'm going to look at the data people here. So I'm going to filter down to the data people here. And let's say I know Aberta. Let's say we're friends. Follow Aberta on LinkedIn. If I go into HubSpot, I can see Aberta is a database administrator in HubSpot. That's the contact information that we have. Let's say that I know that she's not actually a DBA anymore. She's upgraded. She went to Coalesce. She took a class, maybe a class like Jake teaches on DBT, and got certified. And as soon as this stops buffering, come on now, we'll see that I can actually update Aberta's job title in this input table here. She's now an analytics engineer, right? Big upgrade. I can select Aberta and 3 other people that I want to sync out to a list in HubSpot. You can see I've got 4 contacts I'm going to sync out. One of them is going to be updated. That's Aberta. And I can click the button here, and that will trigger a Hightouch job that syncs data from Snowflake, where the input table is writing to, directly to HubSpot. This is the Hightouch interface here. I've got those 2 jobs. There's 4 rows that the jobs had to read, 1 to update and then 1 to add to the list object in HubSpot. If I go back into HubSpot, this is very fast. I can see Aberta's contact job title was updated. She's no longer a DBA. She's come into the 21st century as an analytics engineer. So we're all happy about that. And I can also let the video buffer a second. Come on now. We must be in like the dead zone of this conference or something. But long story short, I can go look at the list in HubSpot as well, and I'll see all 4 of those contacts in that list. And we use this internally. We send out newsletters. I think a lot of people do this, right? The logic for the newsletter, who we want to send it to, fetches data from a lot of different sources, right? So we get metadata from the application, we get metadata from HubSpot, metadata from Salesforce. We can create fairly complex logic to target those in a workbook, save that list and just click sync to HubSpot, and it will push the campaign. And it saves a lot of time for the marketing team to have to try to wrangle the import of a CSV back into HubSpot. So there's my list. It was empty. If I refresh it, I can see the 4 contacts that I added to the list, and now I can target them in a marketing campaign. So that is ending the export. Powerful tool. It's 1 less ticket on the data team's backlog. It's another way of bringing business users into the process of managing their data. And It is the final quest. So no, do not do that. No more videos. I can go forward. There we go. So with these 3 principles here, just to recap, 1, there's no spectator mode. Give your business users the ability to own the static values, whether those are mapping values, scoring values. Using input tables in Sigma is one way of achieving that, where the data team doesn't have to constantly update those values. It really reduces churn. The second is limiting daily quests. As much of the workflow of your user, your data product can satisfy automatically, the better the collaboration between your team will be. And then finally, in the export, if people are downloading things, you've got shadow ungoverned products out there in the ether that are unsecure and causing friction between the teams. So that is our presentation today. Thank you so much for joining. Just special shout out to Sully here, who built everything. If you want to talk data, Jake's entire data team is here at DBT Coalesce. They're all DBT experts. You can swing by booth 106. You could play some Mario Kart or come to our party tonight at the Punch Bowl Social.
Those that we recorded, we have those at the booth as well.
Yeah, you can see it, the code behind them live. So thanks, everyone.